You may not have heard of it, but there is a massive worldwide appetite for the sulfide mineral called antimony, now widely used in microelectronics. In the past 2 years, antimony prices have been increasing by a staggering 300%. It means abandoned mines in northern New South Wales have suddenly become viable again. But antimony is toxic, and there are widespread examples of environmental damage caused by past mining. Pollution in the Macleay River caused by mining is so bad it is expected to be poisoned for thousands of years. So residents in the Clarence River catchment are deeply worried about a large open-cut antimony mine which is on the cards. State political reporter Mark Tobin.
Since 1993 we purchased the farm, and over the years we've been building it up and looking after it, improving it, gaining more and more cattle. It's got about 120 head. Got some new little babies running around right now.
Shelley Griffin's property covers 1,300 acres at Wild Cattle Creek on the far north coast of New South Wales near Dorrigo.
We've got Black Angus beef cattle out here, right. And we're going for our organic certification. And so we've stopped using chemicals, and we're trying to make it a healthy place.
But Shelley Griffin's dream of making this farm organic has one major hurdle: the prospect of a large open-cut antimony mine.
I think that with open-cut mines, you're very much left with no farm to use, aren't you? There will just be machinery here every day. I think they want to access the property 7 days a week. I wouldn't be able to have my cattle operations here. We wouldn't be able to protect any of the bush anymore, and the waterways could quite potentially be polluted forever.
The majority Chinese-owned company Anchor Resources began exploring here for antimony in 2009. Shelley Griffin agreed to let Anchor in, a decision she now deeply regrets.
At the time, my husband had just died and they approached me. He'd fought them off for years beforehand, and I was in such a state of grief. My 4 children were all grieving, and it just seemed like that was my only option.
Was there pressure from the company for you to sign that?
There was a lot of pressure. You know, it was... I felt like I had no choice.
I don't believe it happened. I know from the records that Anchor delayed a significant period of time before approaching her.
Anchor's interest in antimony follows a 300% surge in the global price of the metal. The company has said the Wild Cattle Creek property is its flagship project.
Initially, the results are promising, but there's a lot more work to do.
What type of work is there to?
The next stages of work we propose would be deeper drilling to follow the mineralisation down its plunge. So it's looking to extend it laterally and at depth.
Anchor Resources is not the first mining company with an interest in this property. In the 1970s, during the last boom for antimony, the metal was extracted here.
I think, you know, there are problems left over from the 70s that really do need to be addressed.
Shelley Griffin says the most recent mining activity has left parts of her property permanently damaged.
This is one of the exploration sites, and this is a damage that Anchor did to my property that they could not rehabilitate, you know, under any circumstances because it was just too great.
The agreement that you signed with them, was it part of the deal that they did rehabilitate the land?
That's part of any access agreement deal, that they have to rehabilitate anything that they've done, and obviously they didn't.
No, it was agreed between the parties that the area that was vegetation, which is a previously logged and cleared area and an area where there has been previously drilling activities probably 20, 25 years ago, was to be left as it was.
What about the paddock where Shelley Griffin used to graze her cattle? She says there's grass won't grow there. Would you be prepared to take another look at that?
Yes, if there's an issue and she can approach us, I'm more than happy to meet with her and look at it.
We're on Wild Cattle Creek. It's one of the most important tributaries of the Nymboida River, which is in itself one of the most important tributaries of the mighty Clarence River.
Mark Graham is a Greens councillor on Coffs Harbour Council. He says there should be no antimony mining in a region known for its high rainfall and international conservation values.
There's existing contamination at the site that Anchor proposes to mine. The levels of antimony are 126 times the Australian standard, and there's also considerable evidence of arsenic contamination.
Where's that evidence come from?
That evidence has come from Anchor itself, where they've undertaken water quality sampling and they've identified these very high levels of contaminants.
It's probably likely that there is an historic legacy of some from the mining, and there's also naturally occurring both antimony and arsenic in the naturally occurring waters from areas that haven't been affected by mining.
About 130 kilometres from Wild Cattle Creek is the Hillgrove Gold and Antimony mine. The mine was recently sold to Ancoa, which has plans to capitalise on the strong global demand for antimony. Although it's currently inactive, there are concerns recent overflows from the mine's dam have further contaminated the Macleay River.
What we've got is a legacy of a polluted river. We've seen heavy metals, arsenic and antimony in that catchment at levels that are of grave concern. And that pollution will pollute that river for millennia. That's been confirmed by the government, and that's a disaster for the Macleay River.
I was virtually born here, I guess, and that's 64 years ago.
Right here on this river?
Yes.
Darryl Turnbull runs a small fishing-based tourism business on this river.
To me, it has always been a really clean and pristine river that we caught fish and ate fish from here for years. I won't eat them anymore since there's been a warning from the health department about arsenic and antimony in the river, and I won't let other people eat them that come to my cabins. It makes me probably liable, knowing that there's poison in the river. People just don't really want to come now that they know there's a danger in the river.
Yeah, so we got a phone call from the EPA saying there's elevated levels of arsenic in the water, and then we get dead fish floating on the water, and put two and two together and come up with 4.
Last month, Darryl Turnbull and his neighbours from Lower Creek received letters from New South Wales Health advising them that Hillgrove's mine had overflowed, releasing arsenic and antimony into the Macleay River. They were warned not to drink the water.
It was a shame we haven't had this sort of information years ago, because we had no idea.
Of course, what all started this was the initial call from the health department, from Philippe, I think his name is. Yeah. He rang and said, look, don't pump water from the river. He said it's got arsenic and antimony in it. It's been a spill at the Hillgrove mine. That was what was told to me.
And they rang at night.
Last week, these residents discovered there'd been 3 subsequent overflows, and they're angry they found out from a local journalist, not the authorities.
They didn't tell us about the last 3.
But it wasn't just the residents who were kept in the dark.
Were they overflows?
Yes, there was 3 discharges, I understand, from the Hillgrove mine subsequent to that first one.
Right. Well, my understanding is that our legislation we're putting through is going to inform people. Requirements will be on communication with the community. So that's what we're working on, and that's the most important thing, making the community understand. I haven't seen that press release, so I can't comment on the contents of it.
According to the Environment Minister, there is no link between the mine overflow and the dead fish in this river.
Well, the advice to me is that those fish were reported to the Department of Primary Industries, fisheries, testing was done, and it wasn't related to the overflow.
Did you get any advice on what was the cause of the death of those fish?
No, the only advice I've had is that they were tested by the Department of Primary Industries, fisheries, and not linked to the overflow.
7:30 contacted the Department of Primary Industries. In a statement, a spokesman said,
no testing was able to be conducted.
This was because
these fish had been dead for some time and suitable samples for laboratory analysis were not able to be obtained.
Can you tell just by looking at the vegetation out there that it is a contaminated site?
Yeah, you can. Down the bottom there, there's trees that are just dead and they're, say, 12 foot high and they're dead all the way up. So it's definitely nasty stuff. That.
In the town of Urunga, just outside Coffs Harbour, the dangerous legacy of antimony mining is under lock and key.
What do you tell your kids about that site?
Well, we keep them inside the yard in the fenced area, and like it's got a bit of a bunt wall kind of thing, and with trees that hopefully when the wind's blowing that gathers a lot of the nasty stuff down there, and it doesn't come up this way.
This site was used as a processing plant for minerals including antimony until the 70s. The land's still poisoned and it's gazetted as a contaminated site by the state government. We can't go in there, but activists have, and they say what's been left behind is frightening.
What we see at Urunga is an old processing site. It's just been left, it's just been abandoned. It's antimony and the ore, and it's highly toxic. It's dangerous. There's signs saying keep out, and so there is an impact from mining. We can't have mining at any cost, and if it's going to destroy the Macleay and lead to these incredibly polluted sites like Urunga, we've got to consider that when we look at wild cattle and approving mines at the top of the Clarence.
Back at Wild Cattle Creek, Shelley Griffin is trying to find a legal avenue to stop Anchor Resources from mining on her property.
At this stage, I'm not letting them back onto my property because I just don't feel I can trust them. I think they've been very careless. I think antimony itself is a really dangerous substance to be careless with, and I just don't want them here.
You could give a guarantee that with methods that are in place today that there would be no contamination of the environment?
That's a requirement that the state government, in granting a mining licence, would require that there is none.
We have got some of the strongest environmental regulations in Australia, and we continue to look for ways to make sure the community and the environment is protected in today's standards.
But Shelley Griffin is yet to be convinced.
I am really worried about it. You know, the organic certification is a priority for me. I'm really hoping that we can achieve that because healthy food, healthy pastures, healthy water is a priority. And with Anchor's production of a toxic chemical metalloid that's coming out of the ground, I think it will hinder my approach. They don't go together. They're opposites, polar opposites.